Heyo everybody, and welcome. I am IcicleFerret, and I'd once again like to talk about Warframe. In case you're new to my channel or something, Warframe is a free-to-play shooter game that is constantly changing and evolving, and as such it can be difficult for a new player to know where to start. I thought I could help a bit by sharing my personal weapon recommendations for new players. Now, Warframe has a wide variety of mechanics and nuanced interactions that can support a vast array of playstyles, so keep in mind I'm offering my advice based on my experiences and preferences. Also, I'm only putting weapons in my list that can be purchased as blueprints or straight from the markets from credits. No clan tech or platinum required. And without further ado, here we go! Number 5. The Burston. Relatively cheap to make, the Burston is an attractive weapon for new players seeking to try new things while staying on a budget. Its 3-round burst can be a little difficult to use at first, but it teaches Tenno to be patient and calculating when in combat, while still offering some forgiveness for inadequate aiming. When modded and wielded properly, the Burston can take out some of the toughest enemies a nascent Tenno will encounter with only one pull of the trigger. Number 4. Lex. It's hard to find a better starting secondary than the Lex. Compact, accurate, and powerful, it's an upgrade from the Leto in every way. This is practically the last secondary one would ever need, as, properly modded, it can remain a viable sidearm throughout the Origin system. The only downside is the price tag. At 50,000 credits, it might be a little out of reach for the new player. Also, since beginners have limited inventory space, just hanging on to one might slow down their mastery rank gain. Number 3. The Bow. The bow is great primarily because of its reach, which allows players to engage melee enemies at a safe distance, but also because of its ability to deal impact damage, which is not something typically assigned to firearms. It's a great way to round out damage output, and can also stun lock enemies long enough for a Tenno to beat them senseless. Another reason I recommend the bow is because it is a prerequisite of another great weapon, the Torpedo. Ranking a bow and trading it in for a Torpedo is a great introduction to Warframe's crafting system, which encourages players to try new weapons, while not really requiring them to hold on to old ones nor purchase new weapon slots. Number 2. The Twin Grakatas. There's a reason the Grineer favor this weapon. What it lacks in power and accuracy it more than makes up for with fire rate and status and critical chance. Even with this, the Grakata alone is not the best primary, and shines most as its akimbo secondary version, the Twin Grakatas. Farming enough resources to make 2 of these might be a challenge for the beginner player, but it's definitely a goal worth shooting for. With the correct mods, the Twin Grakatas can make mincemeat out of enemies many primaries have difficulty taking down. The biggest downside of this weapon is its horrendous ammoing efficiency, but when used as a supplement to one's primary damage weapon, it isn't much of an issue. Even after all the new status weapons that have been released, Twin Grakatas remain one of my personal favorites, and are my number 1 choice when I need backup crowd control and status over accuracy. Number 1. The Heck. One of my all-time personal favorites and the first weapon I ever formed, the Heck is an incredibly powerful shotgun that boasts incredible utility. Being a shotgun, it has inherent spread that is very forgiving of imprecise aiming, sort of simulating a soft targeting mechanic that doesn't punish new players for firing from the hip. Just point in the general direction of your opponent and something will hit. Its narrow damage cone also makes it adequate at mid-range against hordes of low and mid-level enemies, and up close it has no difficulty with even heavily armored targets. Shotgun ammo drops are relatively common as well, so running out of ammo is not an issue. And now for some honorable mentions. First up, the Tong. Prior to Update 20, the Tong was my number 1 recommendation to new players. So much of the game opened up to me once I had my Tong. I was finally able to join my friends in high-level sorties and lengthy survival missions, and feel like I was actually contributing to the mission. However, the beloved Tong has since received several tweaks that pushed it out of my list entirely, the greatest of these changes being the addition of self-damage. Wielding a self-damaging weapon correctly without becoming a burden on the team, or a danger to oneself, requires a degree of skill most new players don't have. Because of this, the Tong is unfortunately not on my top 5 list, but it's still a strong recommendation for players who are looking for that little extra bang. Next up, the Proton. If anyone tells you Warframe is pay to win, prove them wrong with the Proton. One of the first weapons available to players, the Proton and its little brother, the Mark I Proton, can be made endgame viable with an Orokin catalyst and about 6 Forma. As great as this weapon is, I feel bad telling players to hang on to their starter weapon forever when Warframe has so many other weapons to explore. Because of that, it is not on my top 5 list. But, you know what? It really is a good weapon. And finally, we have the Viper. With its tiny magazine, pitiful damage, high rate of fire, and minnow-sized animal reserves, the basic Viper is a terrible weapon, but it makes the list because of what it teaches new players. Using this weapon correctly requires players to learn about ammo conservation with techniques like tapping the trigger. Once fully leveled, most new players will either sell it or funnel it into the Twin Viper for even more mastery rank without any hesitation or remorse. Another great lesson about the Foundry. It does not make my top 5 list because the weapon itself just feels so sad and unrewarding to play with. And there you have it. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. What did you think of my choices? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments. I definitely read them and I will definitely reply. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.